podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
I don't know, it's that thing of when you're in the ground, you sometimes have a bit of a different impression of it to people watching on TV, but I thought we slightly struggled to make the breakthrough in the first half, and it was kind of a relief when that breakthrough came at the end of the first half, and then in the second half, particularly in the latter stages of the second half, we were electric and very good value for the 3-1 win. I thought all round it was a pretty superb performance from United from the vantage point I had in the Stretford end.
Well, I thought United simply just controlled the game throughout the first half. So it was over 70% possession, a really high retention of the ball, created a load of chances that struggled to make that breakthrough until Herrera's goal, of course. And then in the second half, just went a little bit flat for a while. Didn't seem to create as many chances, and we just weren't quite as zippy with possession. But I suppose it got better. Once Di Maria came on, he suddenly started creating chances for United, didn't he? And in the end, a sort of fine and buoyant ending, and I'm sure that's what everyone left with at the end. Fine victory for United, though very close to being a bit of a nervy end, wasn't it? After Benteke scored straight after Rooney's second for United.
Yeah, it was that classic thing of all the whole time it was 1-0, I was thinking we really need a second here, because as you say, 70% possession in the first half, even more in the second half, taking the kind of overall total to like 71 or 72 or something, but just kind of completely demolished Villa. But yeah, at 1-0 I was like, we definitely need a second goal here, and it was proved very apt when mere moments after scoring that second goal, they got one back and then spent the whole rest of it going, we really need a third one here, and then we got it. It was just lovely. I mean, I just thought as a kind of attacking performance, it was pretty hard to fault, really. As you say, we made a ton of chances. Certainly, like, my impressionistic view of the game wasn't that they particularly fell in the first half. In partly that is also just due to the end that you're sat at, right? If you're sat at one of the ends, then the action that takes place at that end sort of bores into your consciousness a bit deeper, and I certainly thought that we made life difficult for them all the way through that game, and they really showed very little threat. I mean, Sherwood set them up as you would expect, to soak up as much pressure as possible and try and hit United on the break, and not necessarily score with those breaks, although that's obviously ideal, but also just win set pieces, and it was pretty inevitable that their goal, if it were to come, would come from a set piece.
Yeah, that's right, and I suppose that was the only opportunity Aston Villa were ever going to get. I was chatting to people before the game about how Villa would take it on tactically, because Sherwood was really buoyant before the game, talking about how they'd take the game to United, and United were vulnerable, and they thought they had a chance, and it felt like hollow words really from Aston Villa, and I suppose they tried to break through Agbonlahor, but Villa were so outnumbered in midfield for much of the game that he was forced into the channels, and that was really their only opportunity, wasn't it? A few set pieces and the odd break. In truth, United controlled the game, even if the goals came late. But that's another fine win for United. I'm actually not sure how many that is on the bounce now, but 3 since we started this, what we thought was going to be a super tough run. Tottenham, Liverpool, Villa, then we've got City and Chelsea to come. Some real momentum building up.
For sure. I mean, it's I think it's 5 league wins in a row that was interrupted by that Arsenal loss. And as you say, 3 since we started the tough run. Also 3 since we switched to 4-3-3, and 3 since we started looking like some kind of world beaters, essentially. I mean, perhaps we didn't quite look like world beaters against Aston Villa, but it kind of felt like that. There's been a number of things that have defined these last 3 games. One has been ball retention. That was definitely at its best against Villa. Multiple players with pass completion percentages in the 90s in that game, and not hard to see why. And it was one of those games where we completely dominated possession, but it didn't have that kind of slightly anodyne feel that some of those games have had, and maybe that was just the fact that we got a couple of goals in the last period of that game, but they did feel like just reward for our endeavours. And another absolutely defining characteristic of United's play since we've switched to this 4-3-3 is the pressing. I mean, you've talked about that a lot in the last couple of weeks of the show, but it was on show again against Villa. No time to settle on the ball, and United's third goal, I think it was, one of them anyway. It was the third goal. Herrera's second came from Rooney absolutely harrying a drop ball situation.
Yeah, which Sherwood complained about afterwards, saying that he thought United were going to give the ball back, which they got the ball back, and Rooney did a very good job pressing there to go and get the ball. Actually, that was one of Rooney's two good moments in the game. I thought he had a very poor game. Of course, everyone goes, well, you would say that, Ed. Apparently, my reputation for hating on Rooney precedes me now. But I thought he had a very poor game. He was hardly in the game, actually. Rooney had something like 22 touches in the entire game. Not quite Van Persie-esque, but not far off. But the two great pieces was that to start the attack that won United the game effectively, that late goal, and then Rooney's goal, which was absolutely brilliantly taken. I mean, I guess it was classic Rooney, wasn't it? 2 moments and not much in between.
But let's talk about that moment. That goal was really special. First of all, it was exciting to see Di Maria looking bright, and it was a decent cross to Rooney. You couldn't really fault the cross, but it was slightly behind him, and Rooney did absolutely amazingly to pluck the ball out of the air and swivel and blast it into the top corner. That's in the pantheon of great Rooney goals, I think.
Yeah, I mean, really top quality. I mean, and the most surprising thing, I suppose, was that his first touch actually worked. Normally he's a brick wall and it just bounces straight off him. But no, plucked it out of the air, swiveled, smashed it in. It was Van Basten-esque.
It certainly was. And talking of players who maybe didn't perform and the Rantcast has got a specific agenda against, a poor performance from the previously undroppable Marouane Fellaini, I thought.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Does Van Gaal drop him now? Because he's actually built a reputation this season. I know people have started saying he was stubborn, but we've talked about this before on this show. I was never quite sure what that meant, really, when he was chopping and changing 15 players every game. Oh, that's an exaggeration. It was only 12. But he's been absolutely ruthless. Herrera didn't do what he wanted, dropped him before. Mata didn't do what he wanted. Poor game, dropped him. Will he drop Fellaini after a stinker? I mean, I have to say, Fellaini has been good in the last few weeks. At least he's been effective. He's not pretty at any point, but he has been effective and caused some trouble. But he wasn't even that, really, for United. I mean, he was barely on the ball. He played it very safe when he did get the ball. He didn't really create any chances for United, and he wasn't that effective in the final third. And I wonder whether part of that was the ball was actually going into his feet rather than his head, because United played more football on the ground than at almost any point this season.
Couple of things about that. First of all, I mean, Fellaini was not terrible in that game, but he was the worst of United's probably players, given what Rooney did with that moment of magic. The one thing about, I guess De Gea, you'd have to give him plenty of stick for the goal he conceded, and he didn't have to do much else, so you could give him some criticism too. I think not only will Van Gaal keep him in the side, but I think he should keep him in the side, because it's a very different challenge coming up against City. And it's interesting because the last 2 games, I mean, you say it's because the ball was just fired in at his head, or his chest more accurately, all the way through those 2 games beforehand. But I think more than anything else, he just had space to operate in. And he's not very good when you're trying to break down deep-lying defenders, which is maybe slightly counterintuitive given his apparent physicality. But I think he just needs a bit less pressure on him and a bit more room to work in to be effective. And he had that against Tottenham and he had it against Liverpool, but he didn't have it at all against Villa because they just sat in 2 banks of 4 and he never had room to breathe. So I think that's against City, presumably you'd think they'd attack a bit more, there'd be a bit more space, and I think I'd keep him in for that game.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'm not sure there was anything particularly in the tactics that meant that United played almost basically half the number of long balls that is typical of United. Although I suppose having both Herrera and Mata in there does change the makeup of the midfield a little bit. A little more technical, isn't it? Perhaps more movement off the ball with the system as well, and that helps United's ball retention and helps United just not launch it at Fellaini all the time. So and I think you're right. In a way, Fellaini does need that little space. He's not the type of player who wants the ball in front of him and is going to break down an opposition with a neat pass, is he?
No, I think that the thing about long balls and tactics is key, though, because you say that you mentioned Mata and Herrera, but they've both been in the side for the last 2 games as well. The difference was clearly intentionality. It was clearly tactical, because I would think, I'm not 100% sure about this, and I definitely can't be bothered to crunch the numbers, but I would not be surprised if a huge percentage of the long balls we didn't play, as it were due to the fact that De Gea kept passing it short. Time after time after time, De Gea would just knock it out to Rojo or Valencia. They were his 2 biggest out balls, and far fewer of the launches from De Gea to Fellaini. So it was pretty clear that the tactic was play out from the back, because Villa weren't going to put United under much pressure in United's half because they were sat so deep. And it just looked like it was a deliberate tactical decision, just keep it, play on the deck, because there wasn't the perceived need to launch it, I guess.
Yep, there's definitely some of that. I mean, that's good to see, isn't it? I don't actually think Fellaini is hugely successful when the ball's just launched at him all the time. For one thing, he has a complete inability to actually jump. It's strange, for such a big man, he basically never gets his feet off the ground. I wonder if he's just too big to actually make it off the ground.
# too big to jump. I think that was kind of interesting. And I think, okay, so we've covered the players who did not cover themselves in glory, but essentially we haven't mentioned Valencia, he wasn't brilliant, but everyone else was superb, and I would like to spend the next period of time on this here podcast waxing lyrical about the midfield performance of the 2-goal hero, Ander Herrera. What an outstanding midfield display that was. Okay, it was only against Villa, but he's hardly been bad in games against better opposition, and he was just different gravy. I was watching that game, and all the way through the first half I was kind of analysing, because I had to do this thing afterwards for Bleach Report where I was picked out who played well and who played poorly, and I kind of already had Ander Herrera number 1 of the players that were playing well list, and then he scored the goal at the end of the first half, and then in the second half he was even better, and he's ferocious and competitive when we haven't got the ball. He's quick, he's inventive, he's brave with his passing when he needs to be, and sensible when he needs to be, and he's added this goal-scoring thing to his game. Is Ander Herrera the complete midfielder, Ed?
No, but he was outstanding. Let's not try and paint him something he isn't. No, he's not the complete midfielder, but yeah, you're right. He's very tenacious and he's brave. But it's his passing that stands out. He moves the ball very quickly. He's very crisp with it. Got ahead of the ball. Got into goal scoring positions, obviously. And was the pick of United's midfielders. Over 100 touches as well. So the ball was definitely going through him an awful lot. So just a very, very good midfield performance. Kind of begs the question as to why he seems to have played so little this season. Surely United's midfield would have been much better with him in it for many more games.
Well, there's a couple of things. He's 14th in the list of league minutes played this season. Herrera is, and that's in spite of the fact that he's only missed 7 minutes of the last 7 league games. So he's obviously kind of like flown up the charts in the last 7 games. Apparently, I've heard this from multiple different places. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea, but this is a rumour I've repeatedly heard. His performances in training he just was not putting in the effort in training. Whether it was a cultural thing, whether it was kind of, he's come from a club where, or his last manager didn't expect him to give 110% in training or whatever nonsense that is. Although Bielsa managed him, so how do you know...
Exactly, yeah. So I've heard this one, and I just don't believe it because he worked for Bielsa. In fact, he gave the interview recently when he said that Van Gaal had asked him to stop running around on the pitch so much. This is not a player who lacks for effort.
Then, so you think, is it that he just wasn't quite getting what Van Gaal wanted him to do, but he's actually an incredibly intelligent footballer? I mean, that's very evident from that interview. He speaks about football with a degree of analysis that not that many footballers can. I bet he's going to be one heck of a pundit when he retires.
The other thing is, of course, that the switching formation has created an extra spot in midfield.
Yeah.
Which has helped. So now United only playing with one up front, a situation that many people saw as obvious many, many months ago, given the balance of United's squad. And it's finally happened, and it's actually working for United now. And now Herrera is definitely in the side, and that wasn't the case before. And you kind of wonder when Van Persie comes back, what's going to happen? Is Van Gaal going to move to two up front again, and Herrera or Mata loses their place in the side? Anyway, that's not for next week. Might not even be for the week afterwards. Van Persie's taking a very, very long time to get fit again. And
thank goodness he is. God bless you, Robin, but Van Persie getting injured is the best thing that's happened to Manchester United all season. It's unfortunate for him, and I've got a great deal of affection for Robin Van Persie, and especially everything he did in that first season for us, and how much he loved the club, and talking about how Giggs and Scholes were unbelievable champions all the time. It was unbelievable, to quote him, but it has just been the boon of all boons that he's got injured, because even if you just dropped Rooney and played Van Persie up front, we wouldn't be as good, because Rooney's so much more mobile than Van Persie now.
Relatively mobile. Let's be absolutely. I'm not sure Rooney's that mobile anymore. He's just not even nearly as dynamic as he was.
No. I very specifically said compared to Van Persie. The only way I think you can fit Van Persie back into that side without destroying it is to drop Fellaini and play Rooney there, where Fellaini's playing in that kind of left-hand side attacking midfield role. That's the only way it works without wrecking what is a very good thing at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one position that Rooney hates more than any other, isn't it? Almost guaranteed to provoke a transfer request.
No, I don't mean like where Young's playing as the kind of left-sided attacker, but as the kind of, in the triangle. So it's essentially kind of a number 10 role, isn't it? Because we're playing with two number 10s at the moment, one on each side for good measure.
Yep, something along those lines. Other good players. Mata had a pretty good game, and not nearly as influential as in the Spurs and Liverpool games. I suppose the goals make a difference, right? So it's Herrera who has the double this week, and so we're all looking at him. But I thought Mata was pretty effective again in his false winger position.
Yep.
Carrick, very, very good at the base of the midfield.
Do you think so?
He gets the ball, he moves it very quickly. I mean, he's very, very effective at helping United retain possession in very good areas of the pitch.
It was one of those games where I kind of thought if I had to... I wasn't totally sold on Carrick's performance. There was a couple of, defensive moments where he was just a bit Carricky about the whole thing. But yeah, he was very good with the ball, and Mata was just a joy to watch, as he always is, and he did get that assist, which was crucial. And then Herrera's off celebrating with all the team, and then he sees the love of his life across a crowded box, splits off from the rest of the team, jogs over to give Mata a special hug. It was beautiful scenes between the two of them, and they will have to work extra hard to comfort David after his mistake.
And another player you'd want to single out, Marcos Rojo, back in the side, and very, very effective. Leaves an open question for next weekend, doesn't it? Who should Smalling come back in? Because Smalling's been very good in recent weeks, and Jones not quite so. So is it Smalling and Rojo next week, or do we go back to Jones and Smalling?
That's a really good question, and also brings me back to our earlier conversation about Hoofgate. I wonder whether the absence of Chris Smalling contributes to the relatively smaller number of long balls, but that is just pure guesswork. I'm not.
I'd be tempted to say yes, but then you look at Smalling's pass completion rate this season, and it's very, very high. It's in the 90s.
There you go.
Unless he's a very good long ball specialist, and I suppose we ought to look at the numbers. I'm not sure about that. Actually, that's one of the most surprising stats of the season. Look at Smalling's pass completion rate.
Tell you what, the weirdest stat of the season is that Ander Herrera has scored with every shot on target he's had. He's had plenty of block shots and shots that have gone wide as well. But every time in the league, every time he's hit a shot on target, it's gone in. Weird. Anyway, the thing about the back four is I think I'd be tempted to drop Jones and play Smalling and Rocco, but Jones hasn't been bad, and in fact he made a couple of key Phil Jones type interventions yesterday, didn't he? Important last ditch challenges and in that Phil Jones way. But he just always... He's got that thing about him this season, hasn't he, where it always looks like there's a Bambi on ice thing just about to happen.
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm sure in the summer United, it looks with every press report there is that United are going to try and solidify the long-term interest in Mats Hummels and bring him in, and that's one of the centre-backs on their way. It's certainly not going to be Rojo, so one of Jones, Evans or Smalling will probably be leaving the club.
It's got to be Evans, hasn't it, if you look at this season, unless Van Gaal really springs a surprise.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, Evans has had a terrible season and he's not progressed for some time, so he'd be the logical choice. But even so, if Hummels is in and Rocco's had another season under his belt, and that's the pairing next season, Jones and Smalling aren't going to be playing very much for United, and that's not good for either of them.
No, absolutely. It's in terms of the derby, I just don't know who you play as the back four. I wonder whether you think about the specific challenge posed by City's attack and try and work out who the best players are to deal with that, or whether you're just trying to find United's best balance. The one thing that is quite reassuring is that none of the possible three combinations that you get from those three players, none of them are scary. Like, I'm happy if it's Jones and Smalling, I'm happy if it's Jones and Rocco, and I'm happy if it's Smalling and Rocco. They're all fine the way they're playing at the moment. On that subject, of massive shout out to the people that said hello and said they enjoyed the podcast that day. It's always lovely when people say nice things about it.
Fame, Paul.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what it is.
Next should be demanding to only have the blue M&Ms while you're recording.
Do you know the true story of the blue M&Ms? It's a good story, I think.
Go for it.
So it is true that I think it was Van Halen asked for one of the colours of M&Ms to be taken out of their bowl of M&Ms on their rider, but it wasn't as a kind of rock and roll excess. It's because they had this incredibly technical show with like pyrotechnics and all this quite dangerous stuff, and they were checking the attention to detail of the venue. So if they were brown M&Ms, they knew they hadn't read them carefully enough, and that's the story.
But what explains the fact that you need doves to be released in your honour before every show?
Well, doesn't that happen anyway?
Yeah.
I thought you've been telling me all these years that you release 3 doves before we start recording at your end. I just assumed that was happening. Right, talking of complete nonsense, should we take some Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
At Nye Beveridge says, sorry about this, Ed, you'll have to tune out for a sec. If you made a WrestleMania match with a United player past or present and a wrestler past or present, who would it be? See, the thing is, in that clash, I watched WrestleMania 31. It was amazing. I make no apologies for that. I kind of make a slight apology for that. I was a bit disappointed by how much I enjoyed it, but man, I enjoyed it. Anyway, but still, even having enjoyed that, I'd have to be on the side of the United player, so I want to give us the best chance possible, which means, obviously, I would put Roy Keane in there. Except that wrestling is like, you know, the result is predetermined, and I can't help thinking that if whoever's in the ring with Roy Keane accidentally caught him one when they weren't supposed to, there would be nothing predetermined about the next 10 minutes of the match, and Roy Keane might ruin it and make sure if they got colour the hard way. That's me using red wrestling language that I've learned in the last 2 months.
Stupid sport. It's not a sport. Stupid theatre.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's stupid theatre. And the thing about stupid theatre is it can be really enjoyable. At Tad Davis 31 says, when do we consider ourselves title challengers? Next March.
Yes. Not going to happen this year. Let's be realistic. So what did Chelsea have now? 7-point lead, and that's 9 over United. So 0 chance of United actually taking the title. It would take a massive implosion from Chelsea for that to happen. So not going to happen.
Yeah, I dared to dream after Charlie Adams scored from his own half, but Asmir Begovic ruined it by chucking Chelsea the ball.
Yeah, let's just focus on one game at a time, lads, and not get ahead of ourselves. And there's actually 2 very difficult games coming up against City and Chelsea. I mean, we'll get on to a preview about City in a bit, but United might be favourite for that one now, which is a long time since that has been the case. But 2 very difficult games. So the narrative of our season might be very different in a fortnight's time.
Yeah, absolutely. Although the fact that Liverpool have imploded as well has been extremely helpful.
Yes. I don't want to engage in schadenfreude when it comes to Liverpool, except for Steven Gerrard and us smashing them. But it was quite funny that they got smashed at Arsenal. A draw would have been the better result for United, of course.
I mean, the better result if we're looking upwards, but solidifying 4th place is very important. I mean, we are going to have to, even if we lose to City and Chelsea, we should maintain our 4th place. It's just that 3rd is so much better than 4th, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, it is. Not just for the prestige, for the Champions League qualifying round. Also financially much better as well, because you get a much larger percentage of the pool.
Right. At Peter of All Trades, who expresses sadness that Anderson isn't at the club anymore because he would be the answer to all three of the following questions. Easter egg hunt. Who hosts it at their house? Who hides the eggs? And who's the hoarder? Because, I think Anderson would do all of those things if he was still around. But I reckon that Juan Mata would obviously host it, and I would also trust him the most to hide the eggs. As for the hoarder, Phil Jones has the look of a man who's scared of not knowing where his next Easter egg is going to come from.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't trust Anderson in an Easter egg hunt at all, would you? At any point. I mean, he'd be good at hunting, but you definitely wouldn't trust him to host it.
Who's your player of the season? Asks Ro Barlow, not including Dave.
Oh, well, no, it's Dave.
Yeah, but that's...
Stevie Grace?
But the whole point of the question is who is second in United's player of the year race, which I think is quite an interesting question, because...
It is. No one's actually performed consistently for the whole season. It could be argued. Yeah, in fact, that's true. It's hard to pick a player out that's actually been consistent for the whole season. Maybe Michael Carrick, although even there, quite a few performances earlier in the season where we were criticising him. So, I don't know. It's just Dave. It's Dave 1, 2 and 3.
I think, for me, the answer to that question is, it's kind of ridiculous, but I think it's probably, in terms of consistent when they've played, Herrera's barely had a bad game, but obviously he hasn't played that much compared to other people. But the kind of secret, real answer to this question, I think, might be Chris Smalling, because apart from that game against City, Smalling has done very little wrong all the way through the season, really. And then the other possible answer, it's kind of a slightly uncomfortable one, but the other possible answer is Rooney, who, barring that run of games where he played right deep in the centre of midfield, has been at least okay most of the time.
Yeah, he was totally bobbins in midfield, wasn't he?
He was.
To use your terminology.
He was.
Yeah, he was just terrible. So, no, it can't be him. And I'm afraid it's just Dave in every position from 1 to 10. When they hand out the awards at the end of the season, he should be the first team player of the year, the reserve team player of the year, and the academy player of the year, and the best goalkeeper, and the best defender, and the best striker, and the best midfielder. The whole lot of them.
Even after his shocking display. Actually, he's had 2 slightly dodgy goals conceded in a row now.
He has. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder whether all this contract talk with Real Madrid is disrupting his focus.
I wonder whether it's a great, once we're 2 goals up, he lets one in just to make it Real Madrid go away, because he loves United so much.
Yeah, I think it's more the former than the latter.
I think you might be right. If you had to choose, says Craig Nan 89, would you rather have Daley Blind's hair or Juan Mata's beard?
I'd go for the beard. Daley Blind's hair is just a bit meh.
Did you just say Daley Blind's hair is meh?
I did.
That is the most outrageously controversial thing you've ever said on this podcast.
I'm quite sure it's not. It just looks a bit boy band.
All right. I could grow my hair like that, and I can't grow a beard, so I'd have to go with the beard. Where's Raphael? Asked Joe Patricio. At half-time, when the United players were walking off the pitch, nobody really acknowledged the crowd, as they don't at half-time, because, they're head down, getting the dressing room, they're still in the middle of doing the job of work, except for Raphael, who's, clapping everyone, round the ground. I don't know what's happened to Raphael. He's just been relegated to mascot at this point. Was he on the bench? Was he one of the chosen substitutes yesterday?
He was, along with McNair and Valdez and Pereira and Januzaj, who didn't get on. Maria and Falcao did, of course.
Yeah, but Raphael's got to be gone in summer, right?
Yeah. Well, United are definitely going to bring in 2 right-backs. It'd be, definitely 1. 2 would be more sensible unless they see Antonio Valencia as the long-term backup to whatever expensive right-back they finally buy.
I think that's what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't imagine United will get much for Raphael. They get a bit. I suppose that Van Gaal will be keen to get rid of the deadwood, what's left of it. He's done a reasonably effective job at doing that anyway. So if Evans and Raphael go, and obviously the deadwood that is Dave, oh dear, then there's a few more spaces in the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. At Stevens BK says, has Herrera scored with every shot he's directed at your heart like he has mine? Yes, obviously. How could he not? At Ginger_Prince28 says, what is a periscope? Isn't it something on a submarine? I feel like an old man. I see that word a lot these days. It's like when you would see the word Uber a lot before you knew what it meant. You, of course, probably know what all these things mean, being super engaged in the high-tech modern world and all that.
I'm not sure. I think Periscope's one of these live video apps as well as being a thing on the submarine, along with Meerkat. I accidentally clicked on Meerkat, wanting to look at Rio Ferdinand's sort of live meerkatting, and accidentally hit the record rather than the watch button. So recorded my knee for about 30 seconds. So those amongst you that caught that, because it tweets it to Twitter and you don't get a choice about it, will have caught a recording of my knee. Good job it wasn't something else.
That's probably slightly more interesting than watching Rio Ferdinand's social media presence. At Red Devils 20 Times says, do you think we need to buy a striker this summer? I'm working on the basis that Falcao and Van Persie are both going, and therefore, yes, we do need to buy a striker. But I think we're having a bit of a moratorium on transfer talk, aren't we, until...
We are, yeah. Although, is this transfer talk? There's one analysis that says that you can't really be happy with any of United's strikers right now. Not fully. Falcao's obviously shot. Van Persie well past his best. Although I'm not certain like you are that he's going to leave. And Rooney's definitely going to stay. Although I've said enough about him over the weeks. And Wilson's not played that much. So there's one analysis that says that you couldn't be happy with all of them, and so bringing in a top-class striker would make a lot of sense. Of course, that's stupidly expensive. But the other way of looking at it, if Van Gaal is going to stick with this sort of 4-5-1, 4-3-3 formation, then he doesn't need that many strikers. And bringing in a sort of box-to-box midfielder and a top-quality wide player would be more sensible.
And on that subject, even though we're not talking about transfers, at Tinny Blaz X13 says, to Depay or not to Depay? It's to Depay, isn't it? But still.
He doesn't like that one. He likes to call himself Memphis. It's something to do with his family history, which is why he has that on his back. Yeah, interesting, because I don't know about you, Paul, but I haven't watched an awful lot of Dutch football this season, so I couldn't really tell you how good he's been, honestly. He was good in patches at the World Cup, looked like a player, wasn't quite ready to make the big move, but it's 2 years on, and he's one of the hottest properties in Europe, and it looks like United are interested, but, hey, what do you think?
I don't watch a ton of Dutch football, but people that do say that he's just in a completely different league to the rest of the Dutch league at the moment. He is to the Dutch league what Ronaldo was to the Premier League in that season when he was not the one before he left, but the one before that. Not to say that he's as good as Ronaldo, but I'm just completely stolen that from someone. I didn't make it up or watch the football. So I don't know.
The other way of looking at it is to say that United do need another wide player of high quality. I know Young's had a decent season. That one is definitely relative. Di Maria, I think, would much rather play in the central position. He'd much rather play, of course, which he's not getting much of an opportunity to do right now. And assuming he stays at the club. I know Matt has done very well coming off the right in a false winger position and all of that. But I'm sure United would like to add their stock of top quality wingers.
It's kind of an interesting point, isn't it? I thought Di Maria was really good in his cameo against Villa, and it's been a while since we've said that, and I can't help wondering, this is terribly reductive English football punditry 101, but the fact that it's not winter anymore.
No, please. Please.
He spent a number of years in very warm countries where they have a winter break and all that sort of malarkey, and he's come to Manchester, and it's been a very long, not freezing cold, but a very long, very grey winter here. And, if you're not used to it, I'm not sure that is as trivial as people think it is.
Yeah, he should just man up or something.
It's not so easy to just man up because, for a start, it's biologically not that easy to just man up, because if your serotonin levels, some people are more sensitive than others to the effect of...
Oh, please. He should get himself a sad light in that case.
Well, yeah, for sure.
I'm not having this. I think he's just had a poor season. Although, of course, his numbers look great. Another assist. So he absolutely racks up the assists. But I also have eyes, and my eyes tell me he's had a very poor season. And that assessment is always relative, because United spent £60 million, and for £60 million and that kind of quality, you want much, much more. I look back to his sort of first performance, and everyone was like, wow, Di Maria in the United shirt, he's like, didn't we say in the podcast after his first performance for United early September or so that he was miles above everyone else?
Yep.
It hasn't quite worked out like that over the season.
No, the flip side, though, is that, and I don't disagree with a word you've said, by the way, it's self-evidently true. The flip side of that is he's actually had a super productive season. Like, he's second in the Premier League assist table, only to Fabregas. He's miles by miles top of United's assist table, 10. The next person there's a bunch of people on 4. It's not just luck either. Like, his key pass generation is per game, not total number of key passes or anything, but his average key passes per game is off the scale compared to the rest of them. It's just that his kind of pass accuracy is way, way, way below the rest of them. So
his pass accuracy is even worse than Rooney's, and Rooney's like the 20th best passer in the Premier League. No, not in the Premier League, in the United squad.
But the thing is, Di Maria's is totally offset by the fact that his productivity is so high. So he does a lot wrong, but he does a lot right too. Yeah.
Puts up the numbers, which is one of the reasons why you do want him in the side and just playing better. You want the rest of those stats to get up, and you want, because he's a very, very effective player and he's going to help United score lots and lots of goals if he stays at the club.
Problem is, at the moment, we're talking about a very expensive nanny, aren't we? You know, it's not what you want.
Nani, of course, who's heading back to Old Trafford, although I suppose United will try and find a buyer for him. He's had a productive season at Sporting, but they can't afford his wages, apparently.
Yeah, and surely can't give him another chance. And if Di Maria's getting dropped for not being consistent enough, I can't see Van Gaal having a lot of time for Nani, really.
No, so Van Gaal does actually want to go and spend some decent money this summer. United could pick up quite a bit of change from Rafael, Hernandez, Evans and Nani. I mean, that's a decent amount of money that should be brought into the club.
The kind of culturally interesting thing about that is that's another group of players who played under Fergie, and the turnover of the post Fergie era is starting to approach remarkable levels, isn't it? I mean, Ashley Young gave an interview before the Villa game. It was a nice interview, and he talked about his better form this season, and he talked about how Van Gaal had been at pre-seasons. Van Gaal had come up to him and kind of, to have a private chat, and Young thought, this is it, I'm off, and he said, no, you're one of the senior players here, I want you to take up the mantle of one of the senior players. And for Young, it was the realisation that he's one of the players that's been there longer than a good number of them, which is crazy because he does not feel like an entrenched part of the club.
6 years. Ashley Young has had 6 years earning over £100,000 a week at Manchester United. Just listen to that for one moment and take it in. Let's have a pause. Let's just pause and think about that.
See, the only thing I don't like about that is the amount of money. I think his wages are excessive, but he's never stopped trying, has he? And he has been good this season. Bless old Ashley Young. But yeah, so we're a very different club to what we were a couple of years ago. A very different squad to what we were a couple of years ago.
So United building towards something next season? I mean, fix those holes. So we found a system that works. Fix the sort of box to box midfielder gap that's in there, and get an experienced centre back in there. Don't lose Dave. Get another right back. Clearly, keep Shaw fit, or Daley Blind playing the way he's been very good the last 3 games, hasn't he? At left back, very good again against Villa, I thought. And you've got the core of a side that should then have a much more solid start to the season, and if not challenge for the title, be not far off next season.
Yeah, I don't see why we're not. I guess a big amount will be shown by our performance in our upcoming game against Manchester City next weekend, because they are better than Liverpool and Tottenham by a good margin, even though their form's dipped. But one thing's for sure is if we beat them at Old Trafford, we will definitely be above them in the table, and that will be pretty sweet after the season that we've had.
Yeah, look, last few games, lost to Burnley, lost to Barcelona.
Those things are the same.
Burnley, the Barcelona of Lancashire. Ish.
No, they're not. They're definitely not.
I mean, look, the fact is that City's form has not been great over the last couple of months, and they've had a dip. They should have been challenging for the title. They are the reigning champions, and this is going to be a pretty lightweight attempt at retaining their title, much as it was last time they were champions. So all in all, you've got to say this is going to be a disappointing season for City, and just on form alone, you'd say that United are probably favourites, and it's Old Trafford, and United's record at Old Trafford is outstanding. You'd say that United are favourites to win this game.
I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it? When this difficult run that we all talked about started, I don't think any of us would have had United's favourites for this one at that point, but now you can't say that we're not. I mean, I think there are a bunch of mitigating factors. First, it's a derby, and they have significantly had the edge over us in recent times. The only derby I can think of that we've won recently was the Robin van Persie 3-2, but apart from that, it's been pretty slim pickings for us. And one of the things that's been really wrong at City is they just haven't looked like they've really cared. They haven't looked like they're playing for Pellegrini. They haven't looked like they're playing for each other. But I wonder whether the fact that it's a derby will galvanise them slightly, because they obviously would enjoy the bragging rights that come along with that.
Well, I'm sure that might increase the intensity in their game, which has definitely dropped off. But I'm hoping that what's left of that core of United players that remember all the bad results against City recently. I mean, 4 defeats in a row to City, isn't it? And which is not good, and had kind of happened too many times over the course of 125 years of games. But so I'm hoping that remember those games will be just as intense on the United side as well. There's something to play for here. And it's not just the Champions League place, because I think Liverpool's results over the last couple of games means that United are almost there, 95%, even though there are those 3 really difficult games, and Liverpool do have a really easy running. I think that kind of cushion United have got is enough. So I think it's very high chance United do qualify for the Champions League now. But that 3rd, 2nd, 4th place makes a difference in terms of the qualifying games you have to play in the early part of the season. That will make a difference in terms of United's summer tour and preparation time, and whether United cut that short or it's supposed to be shorter this year anyway, and financially it makes a difference, of course. But I think that's really key, and then just that sense of momentum. Imagine United do finish 2nd after a really strong end to the season, fix a couple of holes. We'll be going into the next season feeling really, really good, or we can lose against City and lose against Chelsea and lose at Arsenal and a couple of draws and just scrape into that 4th place, and we'll be feeling a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the two non-complete disaster scenarios, aren't they? This one is huge. How would you approach it? I don't see any changes necessary from the team that played yesterday, really. You could drop Fellaini, but I really genuinely wouldn't drop Fellaini for this one. You can bring back Smalling, but that's 6 of one and pick 'em, or whatever the expression is. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't know. You definitely don't need to change the system to try and deal with City's threat, because I think United have been at their best when they've tried to impose themselves on other teams. And when Liverpool came, it's worth remembering that both Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur were in superb form before we battered them. So, we've made some pretty good teams look pretty ordinary recently. And
just as a general principle, I'd like to see Fellaini replaced, just because there are many, many more creative players. I mean, bring Di Maria into the side for Fellaini, and all of a sudden you've got loads more creativity in the side. So just as a general principle, I'd like to see that happen. For this game, I'm certain he'll play, so it's speculative to say otherwise. So I'm sure he will, and it'd make a lot of sense for United just to retain the same shape that's been so successful over the last 3 games. Playing well in that system seems to suit United. Tactically, of course, also makes a lot of sense, because City will play a 4-4-2, or basically have been recently, and United should be able to outnumber them in central midfield, and that's actually not an area of great strength for Manchester City. I mean, they've got many strengths. They've got a very good back 4, of course, Company in pretty horrible form at the moment, and they've got some very good players they can use in wide areas. Silva's obviously a real magician, and in Aguero they've got one of the finest strikers in the league. But that central midfield has been a bit difficult for them. Fernandinho, bit meh. Will Milner playing there, and Lampard played last week. You've got to assume he won't. But I think this is United's opportunity to dominate in central midfield over Manchester City. Can't remember the last time that happened.
It's brilliant, isn't it? We have definitely got a much better midfield than Man City. That is nice. It's a nice feeling. As you say, it's been a while. We have to play our game, and we have to not worry too much about them. I guess there will be a need to sit a little deeper as a defensive line because of Aguero, but they have plenty of tools with which they can do damage. But it just doesn't feel like there's a need to change very much. In terms of Fellaini, you said it's kind of redundant to discuss it because it's not going to happen. But are there qualities that Fellaini brings that you think would be useful in this game? Because to me, actually, Fellaini's chest is quite useful in the game against City in a way that it's much less useful against Villa.
Well, it depends on whether you think United need that out ball.
I think they might do.
But not if United are dominating midfield. Might not need it at all.
Yeah.
But it would change the shape, right? So I'm sure he'll play. If he didn't play, you're talking about Di Maria playing and him linking up with Ashley Young. Of course, Di Maria came on wide left, which has not really been the position he's played very often this season when he came on for Young against Villa. So it's the one change I'd consider, just because that kind of ability to run at Company, who's having not a great time of it recently, and Mangala, who's still in his first season in the Premier League, is a good one. I think he'll go with the same shape.
And I think you could also drop Young for Di Maria if you perceive that Di Maria is in good form. I mean, he obviously values Young's work rate and all that kind of stuff because it's very valuable, but I've really enjoyed Ashley Young's renaissance this season, and I like Ashley Young, and I'm glad that I'm happy for him. Di Maria is obviously much better than him, obviously.
Yeah, and he creates goals.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's a change that you could consider making, but it's a risky move, isn't it? If you drop either Young or Fellaini, you're losing a bit of defensive impetus, because Fellaini does make a lot of tackles, for example.
Not many of them are very accurate, but yeah. And I'm not sure if you can call it a tackle when it's with his elbow.
He does also give away a lot of fouls, of course. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating, I guess, that do you think we'll hit 60% possession? Obviously, I'm not saying that's like a goal in and of itself, but do you think that's the way the pattern of play will go?
I don't think so. The only team that retains the ball more than United or passes the ball shorter and attempts to retain the ball more than United is Manchester City, who've played more short passes than any other team in the league, and by some distance as well. So they do attempt to retain the ball. I'd be really surprised if United got that kind of level of possession. I think it'll be very even, but which is another reason, of course, to get a ball player in there, although Di Maria being a man who does not keep the ball.
He's not a ball player, is he? He's a player with an A. But yeah, he's not a ball player in that sense, is he? He is bursty, as Alex Ferguson would say.
Yes.
So, I guess we have to make a prediction, right, for this game. We have to decide what we think the score's going to be. 14-0
to United. No, 1-1.
Yeah, 2-1 to United.
Go on, you Ray. That's confidence for you.
It's not really. It's not like a confident prediction, but I think all being well, no big injuries. I think we definitely can beat them. There's no question about that. A draw would be fine. A draw is not a bad result by any means.
Yeah. Hey, and we're talking before City go and play Palace at Palace, right? And Palace have been in decent form of it of late. Wouldn't it be good if Palace turned them over?
Pardiola doing the business.
Amazing turnaround at Palace. He might just have something, this Pardew.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like Newcastle and Palace, if you compare their form under Pardew and not under Pardew, it is pretty crazy the effect that Pardew has.
And Wilfried Zaha looks like a decent player again. Perhaps we should put a bid in for him.
There was an interview with Wilfried Zaha. I mean, Moyes bashing has grown so tired. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. But the interview that Zaha gave just makes Moyes look absolutely terrible. Zaha basically saying that Van Gaal was really straight with him and said, "I'm sorry, I don't think there's a place for you here." But Moyes just never talked to him about why he wasn't getting in the side. And imagine that, a young player who's just come to United, doesn't know what's going on. His whole life's changed and the manager's just not talking to him. It's just a disgrace. But anyway, we only heard one side of that story. But totally checks out with everything you think about David Moyes, right?
Yeah, Moisey, who's still doing all right in Spain. He's going to, his team is definitely going to be safe this season. Didn't look like that be the case when he took the job, and he's going to get to build from there. Although I saw an interview with the chairman the other day, who was saying that Moyes will bring in English players because he's a good English coach. not sure he would have liked that one.
They are welcome to him. He can stay there as long as he likes. Yesterday, was very... It was another one of those days where it's like, this is brilliant. I'm very glad David Moyes is nowhere near our team anymore. Genuinely feel quite negative towards Moyes for the whole thing, even though I also feel a bit sorry for him, but it's just such a disaster. Anyway, we've talked about this at considerable length. So, Ander Herrera with a stunning performance against Aston Villa. We'll have more of that as we completely batter Man City off the park in the subsequent fixture. And then afterwards we'll be back to discuss United's triumph on another episode of the Rantcast. If you want to get hold of us in the meantime, you can get me on Twitter at UTD Rantcast. You can get Ed at United Rant and get both of us at facebook.com/United Rant. I noticed you wrote an actual comment on Facebook the other day, Ed.
Did I?
You did. It was a link to your Telegraph article about Rooney.
Oh, yes, we haven't talked about that one. God, I got some hate for that. Wow.
Did you?
Yes, a lot. Including a lot of people who were DMing me hate. And some people who, even when I explained, look, I was commissioned to write an article about why Rooney should be sold. You know? That's what you do. You make an opinion. Oh, still, he should be sold. No. He won't be sold, and actually I don't think it makes a lot of sense, funnily enough, even though I banged on about it. But you can't change 3 strikers in the summer, and so he's the one that should stay, and the other 2 should go, and United should bring in a top-class forward. That would be the most sensible thing United could do this summer. We'll see whether that happens.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to everyone who has used unitedrant.co.uk/donate to contribute towards the show. That's really kind of you. But also really useful is if you can rate the show in iTunes if you like it. If you use iTunes, just pop on there and give us a nice review. If loads of people do that at once, we shoot up the iTunes charts and then more people find out about the show and listen to it, and that's always really nice. And if you do listen to the show regularly, just subscribe using the iTunes subscribe feature or whatever other podcast software you use.
Yeah, do that, and if you do, you'll hear us next week talking about United's draw with Manchester City, if you believe me, or victory over Manchester City, if you believe Paul. Yeah. I'm currently, Paul, £11.50 up on the season in the £1 bet club, which I believe I'm the only participant in. But still, £11.50, what should I do with my winnings?
I don't know, that's good though, isn't it?
It's not bad. I think we should do it properly next season. £1 a game too rich if United are in the Champions League.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Can't we do 10p? I'm not doing it, but listeners,
10p. Come on, you want to make it a bit more interesting. So anyway, look, I've proven you can be up. If it's only £1 a game, you only need a couple of wins to break yourself even over the course of the season.
I do not endorse gambling.
Gambling companies, if you'd like to sponsor us, don't come here, because I always say no.
Yeah, they're the only people that do want to sponsor us, ironically.
It is true. Anyway, we'll be back next week, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.